Gracious God, may the words of my mouth, the meditations of our hearts and our minds, even our spirits, may these, O God, be acceptable in your sight. O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Oh, fear. Fear can be a fog that, if unchecked, can blanket our souls in darkness. A darkness so thick that we can't even see our way forward. A darkness so thick that it can blind us to the light of day, to the possibilities and grace to be found within God, within our lives, within the support and the love of friends and family. And God knows the effects of this kind of fear, which is why the very first thing the messengers of God, the angels, say, almost always, the very first thing is, do not be afraid. Fear not. The angel says to Moses out of the burning bush, be not afraid, the angels say to Mary, and they say to Joseph, to the shepherds as they watched their flock by night, to the women at the empty tomb on that very first Easter morning. And why? Why is it the first thing the angels say is, be not afraid? Because those angels know that there is much to be fearful of. That the very second thing the angels say has the listeners fearful. The second thing the angel says to Moses is, go confront Pharaoh. The second thing the angels say to Mary is that although betrothed to Joseph, you are about to give birth to God's Son. You see, those are fearful things. But the angels are trying to give the message that on the other side of those fears is where love is found. It's where faith is found. New life, the presence of God is found. On the other side of that fear. It's almost as if fear and faith are two sides of the same coin. Wherever faith is needed, it's needed because of fear. And wherever there is extraordinary faith, there is an extraordinary fear to overcome. The question that we must ask ourselves as people of faith, hoping to be faithful people, is which side of that coin will we allow to define us? To define and fuel our actions, our future, our lives. Mary and Joseph, Moses, Elijah, and others, the women at the empty tomb, these are people that were not defined by their fear, but by their faith, even within extraordinary, fearful circumstances. So how might we do the same? How can we remain faithful in fearful circumstances? So that the decisions we make, the path we travel, leads us not further into the darkness of fear, but to the bright new day of new life. For that we must follow the path of love. Love is the light at the end of fear's dark tunnel. And love is the path that leads us out of that tunnel and into new life. In your bulletins or on your chairs, there's a little piece of paper Please take that out for a second. And please read what it says. Can somebody tell me what it says? Fear. Fear? Anything else? Love. So I have some fears and I have some love. So which one is it? If you look at it one way, it says fear. If you flip it over like this, upside down, hopefully, you can see the word love printed there. Try it out. There's an interesting thing that this card makes plain. And that is, when you are focused on love, you can no longer see fear. This card brings to life our reading from 1 John. Perfect love casts out fear. So often, we think it's bravery, or we think it's courage, and incredible self-will power or strength, or being super prepared. These are the things that will dispel fear from our hearts, but it's not true. Love is what overcomes fear. To live as people of faith, to find new life, we must live the wisdom which is found on this card. When fear seems to be staring us down, when it seems to be hypnotizing us, almost as if we were addicted to that fear, when it paralyzes us, what we need to do as best we can is to turn it upside down and to focus on love. If we can but ask not what will happen to me, but ask instead, how can I be loving to another in this moment? That will dispel fear. Following that question, how can I be loving to another? Following it, wherever it leads, it will lead away from the clenched grip of fear and toward the light of God. And when we can see that light, when we begin to walk towards it, that light reveals new paths that we could not see. And those new paths lead to new possibility. The light of love dispels fear. It opens hearts. It unleashes an outpouring of generosity. A generosity which in turn, when shared, creates new life. We are, of course, living in extraordinary times. We are living in fearful times. We must be smart. We must make smart decisions. We must be informed. But we also need, and the world needs, now more than ever, to follow the light of love. To allow God's love to guide us. Being smart and wise and non-willful, but willing to change for love's sake. We have made a few changes to worship, as you have already seen. And we may need to make changes in our daily lives. But those changes must be guided not by fear, but guided by the light of love. Not just self-protection, but out of loving compassion for the most vulnerable among us. We do not shake hands during the passing of the peace, not because we fear each other, but as a way to love one another, a way to protect one another, to safeguard another's health and well-being. Beginning next week, as Barbara said, we will begin to live stream our worship service. Again, not because we fear each other or fear gathering together, but that so everyone can participate in worship. Everyone can experience the presence of God through worship, so that everyone can feel the love of this community, even if they are ill, or vulnerable in some way or another, or they make a smart decision for themselves, a non-willful decision to worship at home. We can model that same love in our daily lives. We can purchase supplies and food or medicine, not to hoard them, but so that in another's time of need, we can then provide material assistance. We have to go the other step to make the loving choice, not the fearful choice. To be generous, to be loving, to share, to give, even now, and especially now. Our actions here in the church and at home in the community, they must not instill a greater fear. They must inspire a greater love, a greater generosity, so that that generosity can reveal other possibilities and create a new and a healthier life for us all. So this is a crisis, to be sure, but it is also an opportunity. An opportunity to show one another, to show the world the power of love, to model loving compassion, to live in a giving, generous way. To help you do that, take this card with you out into the community, and when you are faced with a decision, when you are unsure of what to do, if you feel fear creeping upon you, look at this card. Remember that the way out of that fear, the way to walk towards God's light, the way to help create new life, is to focus on and follow the light of love. It is to ask how you can be loving in that very moment with that decision to another. May God help us, each one of us, make those loving choices, to be smart and to be informed, so that life and new life may flourish out of the darkness like an Easter sunrise. Amen.